My name is Clara, and at 37 years old, I never thought I'd be sitting in a police station, accused of a hit and run I didn't commit. But that's exactly what happened, and the worst part wasn't the accusation itself. No, the worst part was finding out that my own stepdaughter had stolen my car, wrecked it, and then told the police I was the one behind the wheel. And my husband, Michael, the man I had trusted with my life, told me to just take the fall. So I smiled, I stayed quiet, and I made my own plans. Because if they wanted me to be the villain, I wasn't going to play their game the way they expected. 2 months later, my stepdaughter was in tears in front of a judge, and Michael was begging me for forgiveness. Now, if you've ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to stand by you, the people who should have been your biggest supporters, you're going to understand exactly how this felt. You don't expect your day to end with 2 police officers knocking on your front door. Not after spending the day doing something as boring as working from home, submitting invoices, folding laundry, and fixing a leaky faucet in the downstairs bathroom. Nothing exciting. Nothing unusual. Just an ordinary Tuesday in Denver, Colorado. So when I opened the door and saw 2 uniformed officers standing there, their radios buzzing, their faces serious, I honestly thought they had the wrong address. They said my full name, slowly, carefully, and I knew right away this wasn't about a neighbor's barking dog or a parking issue. One of them asked if I was aware that my car, my silver SUV, had been involved in a hit and run earlier that morning. I laughed. I actually laughed because I thought it was a joke. "You've got the wrong person," I said. "My car's been in the driveway all day. I haven't even left the house." But then one of the officers tilted his head. Not smiling, not joking. "Ma'am, a witness got your license plate. Your stepdaughter, Rachel, told us you took the car around 9 this morning." And that's when my brain froze. Rachel. I stepped outside, looked toward the driveway, and my heart dropped. The space where my SUV should have been was empty. Completely empty. That's when everything clicked. Rachel didn't have a car of her own, though she'd been complaining about it for months. Michael kept saying she needed independence, that she was old enough to drive herself around. I had even offered to help with lessons, but Rachel had brushed me off, saying I was being controlling. I scanned the street, praying maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I'd just forgotten that Michael had moved the car. But no, it was gone. And now I was being accused of driving it into someone. Where's the other person? The one who was hit? I asked. One of the officers shook his head. They're in the hospital. Not life-threatening. Broken wrist, concussion. They were riding a bike when they were struck. Jesus. My hands went cold, and the driver fled, the other officer added. But we had a witness who followed long enough to get the plate. Your stepdaughter said it was you driving. And your husband confirmed it. I stared at them, stunned. Is that what he told you? That he saw me driving? The officer nodded. Yes, ma'am. He said he saw you leave the house around 9 a.m. He also mentioned you and Rachel might have had an argument, and that you may have struck her before leaving. I blinked so many times. It felt like I was trying to reset my entire brain. Did they really just say my husband told them I hit his daughter? There was no way. No possible way Michael would lie like that. He was in the same house as me all morning. He knew I hadn't gone anywhere. And Rachel, yes, she was manipulative, yes. She knew how to twist situations. But this was beyond anything I thought she was capable of. I didn't hit her, I said firmly. I haven't touched her, and I sure as hell didn't take that car anywhere today. The officers exchanged a look. Would you be willing to come with us for questioning? Of course I said yes. I wasn't guilty, so why would I fight it? I figured the truth would clear everything up. Cute thought. They didn't cuff me, but they did put me in the back of the car. As the door closed, I caught the look from my neighbor across the street. That kind of look sticks with you, the one where people are already judging, already wondering what you did at the station. I asked for a lawyer. Not because I had anything to hide, but because I realized very quickly I was living in a world where logic had taken the day off. After 2 hours, Michael finally came in. His face was pale, not with guilt, but with fear. Not fear for me, not fear for the cyclist who'd been hurt. No, he was afraid that this whole thing might ruin Rachel's college applications. I'm sorry, he said, sitting across the table. Rachel panicked. She said you'd know how to handle it best. She said what? I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. She thought you'd take care of it. For the family. I stared at him. You know I didn't take the car. You were with me all morning. Michael swallowed. Yes, but it's different now. There's a police report. And the bruise. That stopped me cold. What bruise? He hesitated. Rachel has a bruise on her arm. She said you grabbed her during an argument, then stormed out after hitting her. I sat back in my chair, trying to process. So let me get this straight. Rachel steals my car. She crashes it. She flees the scene. Then she tells the cops I was the one driving. And you, my husband, the one person who could clear this up in 10 seconds, you back her up? You even imply I hit her? Michael flinched. It's just until we figure it out. There's nothing to figure out, I said flatly. She lied. And you lied with her. She's scared. She made a mistake. No, I said, staring him dead in the eye. You both did. He reached across the table, tried to take my hand. Please, Clara, just take the blame for now. We'll fix it later. I pulled my hand back, calm, steady. That's when I stopped talking. That's when I smiled, just a little. Because betrayal has a funny way of making things very clear. If they wanted me to take the fall, I would. Just not in the way they imagined. That's where I'll pause for now. If someone had asked me 6 years ago whether I wanted kids, I probably would have shrugged and said something vague like, if it happens, it happens. That's the kind of answer you give in your 30s when you're not against the idea, but it's not exactly on your vision board either. Then I met Michael. He was smart, charming in a dry, understated way, and confident in a way that made other people pay attention. He also came with a 13-year-old daughter named Rachel. And from the very beginning, Rachel made it clear I was not what she wanted. I'll never forget that first dinner. Rachel sat across from me at a little Italian place downtown, stirring her soda with a straw, not saying a single word. When I asked her about school, she rolled her eyes. When I complimented her earrings, she ignored me completely. It felt like I was a substitute teacher who didn't know how to work the projector. On our second date, Michael had already warned me. I'm not looking for a replacement mother, he said. Just a partner who can handle things without making them weird. I laughed and told him, I'm great at not getting weird. In hindsight, probably one of the weirdest things anyone could say. But somehow, we made it work. 6 months later, I was helping Rachel with algebra homework while Michael fell asleep on the couch. Halfway through a documentary, life started blending together. I cooked pancakes on weekends. I drove Rachel to volleyball practice. I learned what a TikTok dance was, something I still regret. And slowly, very slowly, I carved out a place in their lives. I never expected her to call me mom. That wasn't the goal. Her biological mother was still technically in the picture, though more like a distant satellite that existed in theory but didn't really help anyone navigate life. But I showed up. Every day I showed up. I paid for braces. I covered school clothes. I replaced the phone Rachel shattered twice in one semester. When she turned 16 and hinted about learning to drive, I offered to teach her. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "That's what actual parents do." Then she walked away. I told myself it didn't sting. Truth is, it did. Michael always reassured me. She'd come around eventually. She's just got a strong personality. He said it like it was a compliment. Like manipulation and defiance were proof of intelligence instead of warning signs. She pushes boundaries because she's smart, he'd add. Which is one way to rebrand spoiled and self-centered, I guess. But I stuck it out. Families aren't built overnight, right? Right? If I stayed consistent, supportive, steady, unflinching, eventually, I'd earn her trust. Spoiler alert, I never did. In fact, the older Rachel got, the sharper her manipulation became. If she missed curfew, it wasn't because she broke the rules. No, it was because I had weird rules. If her grades dropped, it wasn't because she didn't study. No, it was because I stressed her out by asking about homework. If I dared to say no to something, she'd sigh dramatically and tell her father I was controlling. Michael, of course, always smoothed things over. He hated conflict. He had this talent for redirecting any conversation away from accountability. If Rachel yelled, it was passion. If Rachel lied, it was fear. If Rachel threw a hairbrush against the wall during an argument, which really happened, it was just hormones. At first, I rationalized it. Teenage girls are difficult. Blended families are difficult. Maybe I just needed more patience. So I tried. God, I tried. I went to every parent-teacher conference. I paid for ASAT tutoring. I helped her fill out college applications. I even bought a used car in my name, with the plan to transfer it to her once she had her license and insurance sorted out. That car? Yeah, the very same car she later stole, crashed, and blamed on me. Michael always said, things will change once she matures. She'd grow out of it, so I gave her space. I gave her my weekends. I gave her my car. I gave her everything short of a direct deposit. And what did I get in return? A felony accusation. I've thought about that moment in the police station for weeks. Michael sitting across from me, wringing his hands like he was the victim, saying, she's scared. She made a mistake. No, a mistake is forgetting to submit your college application before the deadline. A mistake is dropping your phone in the toilet, stealing someone's car, crashing it into a cyclist, fleeing the scene, and then falsely accusing them of assault. That's not a mistake. That's a strategy. And Michael didn't just go along with it. He filled in the gaps. He told the police he saw me leave the house. He told them I was upset. He told them I probably needed to blow off steam. At the exact same time he claimed I was blowing off steam. I was in the laundry room folding towels and answering work emails. The most rebellious thing I'd done that morning was add an extra shot of espresso to my coffee, but none of that mattered, because Rachel and Michael had a story. And their story was neat, convenient. It sacrificed me, the boring, reliable stepmom, so the golden child could walk away clean. That's when something inside me shifted. I stopped being nice, not in an obvious, dramatic way. I didn't scream. I didn't slam doors. I didn't suddenly stop paying bills. Outwardly, nothing changed. I still cooked dinner. I still took out the trash. I still sent polite texts like, hope your meeting went well. But behind the scenes, I got quiet. Strategic. I called my lawyer. I requested every piece of traffic camera footage I could get my hands on. I pulled text logs, timestamps, receipts. I froze the joint bank account and opened a new one in my name. I transferred my paycheck. I cut off Michael's access to every account he ignored but relied on, power, water, Wi-Fi, you name it. And I documented everything. If they wanted a villain, I'd be one. Just not the kind they were expecting. C. Being accused of a hit and run by your stepdaughter is one thing. But having your husband back her up, that does something to you, not in a loud, rage-filled way. It's quieter, colder. Something inside you just switches off. I stopped asking why. Why would they lie? Why didn't Michael protect me? Why did Rachel think this was okay? I didn't need the answers anymore. I just needed proof, and I got it. It started with the traffic cameras. Turns out, when you're accused of a crime, you have the right to request footage. My lawyer helped me, and we pulled 2 angles from the intersection where the cyclist was hit. And guess what? The driver wasn't me. The driver was Rachel. She had on a hoodie and sunglasses, but you could still see her face clearly when the SUV blew through the red light. She could barely see over the steering wheel. And the kicker? She was laughing. Clear as day. You could see her mouth open in a laugh right before she swerved. Around the corner. It was beautiful. But I didn't stop there. My lawyer told me it wasn't enough to prove I didn't do it. We had to prove Rachel knew she was lying. So I went through her social media. Rachel thought she was smart, locking down her Instagram stories and TikTok after the crash. But teenagers are terrible at privacy. One of her friends had reposted a clip from that very morning. Rachel holding up my car keys, smirking at the camera with the caption, "Stepmom's SUV today." There was even a short video in my driveway, her and a friend pretending to drift the steering wheel, laughing like it was all a game, And then came the best part. The party. Footage. Because of course there was a party. Rachel hadn't just gone for a joyride. She had picked up 2 friends on the way. They were headed to a graduation brunch that turned into a full-on party. One of those friends went live for 30 seconds right before the crash. Long enough to catch Rachel singing along to music, flipping the camera to show the road, then blowing right through a red light. After the crash, they panicked and deleted the video. But nothing online is ever really gone. Someone screen recorded it. Someone else shared it. And eventually, it landed in my inbox with the subject line, "Thought you should see this." Oh, I saw it. And I saved every second. The day I handed all the evidence to my lawyer, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel relieved. I felt steady, like a surgeon scrubbing in for a procedure. Calm, precise, focused. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Denise, clicked through the videos and shook her head in disbelief. She really thought she'd get away with this? She muttered. Of course she did, I said. Michael always told her she could. Denise leaned back in her chair. We've got her. The traffic footage, the Instagram story, the live video, this isn't just circumstantial. It's direct evidence. If the DEA sees this, Rachel won't just lose the case. She could face juvenile detention. Possibly worse, depending on the cyclist's injuries. I stared at the grainy freeze frame of Rachel behind the wheel. Her lips stretched into that arrogant smirk. A smirk I'd seen 100 times across my dinner table. I don't want her destroyed, I said finally. But I'm not taking the fall for her. Good, Denise replied. Because you won't have to. What I need from you now is patience. Let me handle the timing. So I waited. I played the part of the supportive wife. I made dinner. I folded laundry. I even asked Michael how work was going. And all the while, my case built like a storm front. Quiet, heavy, inevitable. Michael still believed I'd stay quiet for the family. He walked around with that tense smile of his, the one he wore whenever Rachel was in trouble. The don't make a scene smile. Rachel, meanwhile, acted like nothing had happened. She lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, laughing at TikToks, snacking on chips. The only sign she knew what she'd done was the way she avoided eye contact with me. It was surreal. Like living with 2 actors who hadn't realized the play was over. The curtain had dropped, and the audience had gone home. A week later, Denise called. They're moving forward with the charges, she told me. The DEA wants to push for trial. But they haven't seen our evidence yet. That's our leverage. If we wait until discovery, we'll corner them. They'll either drop the charges against you and pursue Rachel, or they'll try to bury it. Either way, we're prepared. Bury it? I repeated. She sighed. Your husband's name still carries weight in this town. People like to protect their own. If they try to sweep this under the rug, we'll go public. The footage alone will tear apart their version of events. That was the first night I slept well in weeks. Michael noticed the change in me. You seem calmer, he said one morning over coffee. I am, I replied. He studied me. You're not still upset about Rachel, are you? She's under so much pressure. Kids make mistakes. I almost laughed. Mistakes. That word again. He tossed it around like confetti. Each piece meant to cover the ugly truth underneath. She didn't make a mistake, I said softly. She made a choice. Michael's jaw tightened. She's family. You don't just turn on family. The irony was almost funny. Family? He turned on me the second it was convenient, but I didn't argue. I just sipped my coffee and let silence do the talking. Denise was right. Patience was everything. I let them think they'd won. I let them think I was beaten down, resigned. The calmer I was, the bolder they became. Rachel started dropping snide comments again. Careful driving. Clara, she'd say with a smirk. Wouldn't want another accident. Michael stopped hiding his disappointment behind gentle tones. He spoke to me like I was already guilty. You should just apologize, he said one night. Take responsibility. It'll look better in court. I looked him dead in the eye and asked, Whose wife are you, Michael? Mine or Rachel's? He didn't answer. He just rubbed his temples and muttered something about stress and not making things worse. That's when I knew. I wasn't just betrayed. I was disposable. The cyclist Rachel hit, a middle-aged man named Peter, had suffered a fractured collarbone and a concussion. He was alive, thankfully, but the medical bills were already piling up. Denise suggested I reach out. Not directly, she clarified. Through his lawyer. If we show him the footage, he might be willing to testify. That strengthens our case and puts pressure on the DA. So that's what we did. Peter's lawyer was stunned. He had been told point blank that I was the driver. Seeing Rachel behind the wheel changed everything. Within days, he filed a motion demanding the DA review the new evidence. And just like that, the narrative cracked. At home, though, nothing changed. Rachel still acted untouchable. Michael still begged me to think of the bigger picture. But now, I had something they didn't: certainty. The day the DA's office called me in to review the evidence, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Denise slid the USB drive across the table. This will clear my client, she said firmly. The prosecutor plugged it in, and there it was. Rachel laughing behind the wheel, blowing through the red light. The room went very still. When the video ended, the prosecutor looked at me. Mrs. Hale, I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. That night, Michael tried to confront me. They showed us the footage, he said, pacing the living room. Rachel's scared out of her mind. She's begging me not to let this ruin her life. Ruin her life? I asked. She tried to ruin mine. She's just a kid. He snapped. No, she's 17. Old enough to drive, old enough to lie, old enough to frame me for a felony. That's not a kid. That's a criminal. His face twisted, like I'd slapped him. How can you be so cold? I looked at him for a long time before answering. Because I had to be. 2 weeks later, we walked into court. Rachel sat at the defense table, pale and trembling. Michael held her hand, whispering reassurances. He didn't even glance at me. When the judge called my case, Denise stood tall and confident. She laid out the evidence piece by piece. The traffic cameras, the Instagram story, the party video. The courtroom was silent except for Rachel's muffled sobs. And then came the moment I'll never forget. The judge turned to Rachel and said, Miss Hale, do you understand the gravity of what you've done? Rachel broke down crying. Michael squeezed her hand, tears in his own eyes, begging me with his expression to forgive them. But forgiveness? That wasn't on the table anymore. The day court ended, I didn't walk out feeling victorious. I didn't even feel relieved. I felt hollow. The judge's gavel came down. The murmurs rippled through the courtroom, and Rachel was sentenced to 18 months in a juvenile rehabilitation program plus community service. Her record wouldn't follow her forever, but it would sting enough to matter. She cried. Loud, heaving sobs that echoed through the wood-paneled walls. Michael held her, whispering, It'll be okay, baby. We'll get through this. Neither of them looked at me. Not once. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Microphones, cameras, flashing lights. Double quotes, Mrs. Hall. How does it feel to be vindicated? Do you plan to stay with your husband after this betrayal? Do you think your stepdaughter deserves her sentence? I didn't answer. Denise shielded me with a curt, no comment. But inside, I had plenty to say. How does it feel to be vindicated? Like climbing out of a grave you never asked to be buried in. Do I plan to stay with my husband? Ask me if I plan to stay with a knife in my back. Does my stepdaughter deserve her sentence? She deserves the chance to learn what accountability feels like, but none of that belonged to the reporters. That was mine. At home, silence filled the house. Rachel's room sat empty, stripped down to bare essentials before she was taken to the program. No posters, no clothes thrown on the floor. Just a bed and 4 blank walls. Michael slumped on the couch, a man deflated. She's just a kid, he muttered for the 100th time. She's nearly 18. I reminded him. She made a mistake. I cut him off. Stop calling it that. Stop shrinking what she did into something small and forgivable. She stole. She lied. She let me sit in a police station while she painted me as a criminal. That's not a mistake, Michael. That's betrayal. He rubbed his face, exhausted. She's my daughter, and I was your wife, I said quietly. He looked up at me then, eyes bloodshot, like he was only just realizing what he'd lost. The begging began a few days later. Please, Clara, don't give up on us. She come back better. This could change her. I can't do this without you. Funny, I thought. He had no problem doing it without me when it mattered most. When the police questioned me, he let me twist Dot when Rachel lied. He let it stand. When I needed my husband, he chose his daughter. Every single time. Dot, and now that the truth was out, now that the world knew what Rachel had done, suddenly he wanted my loyalty again. Dot, it was too late. I started packing the next week. Dot, not dramatically. Not slamming drawers or tearing things off hangers, slowly, deliberately, one box at a time. Michael watched, helpless. Where will you go? He asked. My own place, I said. Somewhere peaceful. Somewhere no one calls me a liar or a criminal. He reached for me, then stopped, like he knew he no longer had the right. We can fix this, he whispered. No, Michael, I said, my voice calm. You had a chance to fix it when it mattered. And you chose her. You both chose yourselves. I'm just finally choosing me. The hardest part wasn't leaving him. Dot, it was leaving the version of myself I'd built in that house. The stepmother who cooked pancakes, cheered from the bleachers, bought birthday gifts, paid for braces. The woman who thought consistency and love could patch over manipulation and cruelty. That version of me died in the police station the day they accused me. What walked out of that marriage was someone sharper. Someone who understood that loyalty without reciprocity isn't noble. It's self-destruction. Rachel wrote me one letter from the program. It wasn't an apology. Not really. She said she didn't mean for it to go that far. That she was scared and thought Dad would handle it. She said she never wanted me to get hurt, but nowhere in those pages did she admit the truth that she made a choice. That she tried to ruin me because it was easier than facing consequences. I didn't write back. Sometimes silence is the only answer that fits. Michael tried calling for months after I left. Voicemails, texts, emails. I miss you. Rachel's asking about you. We can start over. But each message was just another reminder that he still didn't get it. Rachel wasn't the only one who betrayed me. He did too. And trust, once shattered, doesn't get glued back together. Not when the break runs that deep. So here I am. 30-7 years old. Newly single. Living in a quiet apartment with plants I finally have time to water and shelves stacked with books no one rolls their eyes at. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, certain I hear sirens outside. My body remembering the fear of being accused, of having no one in my corner. But then I breathe. I remind myself it's over. I survived. And not just survived. I won. Not because the court cleared my name. Not because Rachel faced consequences. But because I walked away. Because I chose myself. So if you've ever been betrayed by the very people who should have been your biggest supporters, hear me when I say this. You don't have to stay loyal to people who burn you just because you share a last name. You don't have to keep sacrificing yourself at the altar of someone else's mistakes. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting for them. It's walking away for you. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I walked out of that house with 2 suitcases and a box of files. Since I left behind the version of myself who kept waiting for love and loyalty to mean the same thing to Michael and Rachel as it did to me. I wish I could tell you that time makes the pain fade. That distance erases the sting. But the truth? Betrayal doesn't just vanish. It lingers. It lives in your bones like old injuries that ache when it rains. And yet, I'm not broken. If anything, I'm more whole than I've ever been. I live in a small apartment now. The kind with creaky wooden floors and sunlight that pours through the windows in the mornings. I bought myself new dishes, new towels, new furniture. Nothing fancy, just mine. There's peace here. No slammed doors. No whispered arguments in the kitchen. No teenage disdain curling through the air like smoke. For the first time in years, I can breathe without checking if someone else needs me. First, Michael reached out once more about 3 months after the sentencing. He showed up outside my apartment building. holding a bouquet of grocery store roses like a peace offering. "I've changed," he said. His voice was rough, his shoulders slumped. "I see now what I did. I abandoned you when you needed me most." "Please, Clara, give me another chance." The old me would have softened. The old me would have believed that remorse counts as redemption. But I'm not her anymore. I looked him in the eye and said, "Michael, you didn't just abandon me. You betrayed me. And the difference is betrayal is a choice. You chose her lies over my truth. And I can't unknow that." He cried, actual tears running down his face. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered the look on his face in that police station when he told the officers I had probably just needed to blow off steam. The way he'd watched me sit in handcuffs, silent, accused, and pity turned into steel. I closed the door, and I haven't seen him since. Rachel came back from her program a few weeks ago. Word travels, even when you don't want it to. A mutual acquaintance told me Rachel is quieter now. Not broken, but humbled. She's taking online classes, doing volunteer hours, keeping her head down. She hasn't tried to reach out to me. And I haven't tried to reach out to her. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about me, if she regrets what she did. But then I remind myself, her remorse, or a lack of it, isn't my responsibility anymore. Let Michael handle his daughter. I've carried enough weight that wasn't mine to bear. I've built a new rhythm for myself. Mornings of coffee on the balcony. Afternoons spent at work without frantic texts pulling me in 10 different directions. Evenings filled with books, long walks, dinners with friends I'd neglected for years. It's quiet, but it's mine. And every so often, I catch myself smiling for no reason at all. Just because I'm free. Looking back, people always ask the same question. Would you do it again? Would I step into Michael's life knowing where it would end? Knowing the betrayal waiting on the other side? And the truth is complicated. No, I wouldn't willingly walk into that fire again. But yes, I go through it because it taught me something. I never would have learned otherwise. It taught me that love without respect is just a leash. That loyalty without reciprocity is just slow self-erasure. And it taught me that sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's refusing to be buried alive. So here, I am. 30-7, divorced, betrayed and rebuilt. Not perfect, not healed in storybook way, but stronger, clearer. And if you've ever been betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, if you've ever been blamed, discarded, or silenced just to keep someone else comfortable, hear me when I say this. You are not obligated to stay. You are not required to carry their sins. You are allowed to put yourself first, even if it means walking away from the people you thought would walk with you forever. Because sometimes survival doesn't look like fighting. Sometimes survival looks like shutting the door. And never opening it again.